Shakespeare once wrote, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." While the rest of that poem isn't actually relevant, I think it's an interesting quote to describe performance, persona, social anxiety, and the wonderful works of Nathan Fielder. As someone with anxiety, I personally worry a lot about the future. Things can be promised, but never truly guaranteed. Oftentimes, we wait for the perfect moment to make our move, but really, there is no time like the present. We measure ourselves up to the lives of others. However, we forget everyone's circumstances are different. We long for a roadmap where every detail is planned out, but in actuality, there is no one-size-fits-all guide for how we live our lives. This is what I find so fascinating about Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal, which is now airing on HBO, along with his previous work on Comedy Central, Nathan For You. To understand The Rehearsal, I think it's helpful to familiarize yourself with Nathan For You. Nathan For You is a show that begins as a parody of shows like Bar Rescue or Kitchen Nightmares. The punchline of each episode is the absurd lengths Nathan goes to in order to enact his ridiculous plans. These plans almost always feel like they should be illegal. In most cases, Nathan's idea is actively harmful to the business's image and reputation. For example, in the first episode, Nathan suggests that a local frozen yogurt shop create a new flavor to generate buzz. That flavor was poo. As you can see, the first season has some kind of silly and sophomoric stuff in there, but it's great. The methods to attract attention become more involved as the show goes on. I don't really want to ruin any more surprises that aren't really relevant, so take it my word, just watch the show. As the plans become more and more complex, so does the show's themes, and its main character, Nathan Fielder. Over the course of its 4-season run, the show introduces themes such as loneliness, identity, regret, the influence of social media, postmodernist art, and the masks we wear to impress others. What is genuine and what is planned out? Obviously, there's always a plan, but what degree are things staged? It's important to note that Nathan Fielder is playing a dramatized version of himself in this show. Nathan Fielder is a real comedian, but on Nathan For You, he's playing more of a caricaturized version of himself. He really leans into his awkwardness. The first season implies that Nathan, the character, is unaware of this flaw. He doesn't realize he makes people uncomfortable. Later seasons deal with Nathan forcing himself to be likable, and forcing others to like him. It's cringe in the best ways.
Think of this look.
Is this, not
you guys said you liked the look.
It fits you perfect, the V-neck and the blazer.
Ultimately, Nathan's character is about finding a genuine connection with others in this modern world. The final episode, the feature-length Finding Francis, no longer deals with struggling small businesses. Instead, it focuses on a Bill Gates impersonator named Bill Heath, who longs for reconnecting with an old flame named Francis. Bill Heath is an actor formerly hired by the show specifically for his Bill Gates impersonation. Nathan finds Bill intriguing and wants him to help find Francis. Nathan exhausts all of his resources to locate Francis and eventually succeeds. Bill Heath and Francis have a brief phone conversation, and it ends well. Bill is ready to move on, no longer obsessing over what could have been. We find out that Francis is now a grandmother. She's had a fulfilling life. Bill can now seek new opportunities, having gotten the closure he yearned for. Throughout the finale, Nathan has his own personal subplot, which concludes his arc as the lonely TV show host, desperate for love and friendship. He hires an escort to serve as practice for Bill's conversation with Francis. Bill backs out, and this moment is so great because Bill breaks Nathan's monotonous facade.
I hate to use that term. You got to know what you're sticking it in.
Jesus, Bill.
That's right.
Since the woman, Macy, has already been paid for her time, Nathan steps in and meets with her instead, leading to a strangely endearing moment. The search for Francis is put on hold as Nathan attempts to make a connection. In these moments with Macy, we have a rare opportunity to see a seemingly more genuine side of Nathan Fielder. Nathan invites Macy to spend more time with him, expressing that she is one of the few people he has enjoyed talking to in a while. He shows her some clips of Nathan For You, shares his comedic side, performs magic tricks, and takes her on nice dates. Despite the relationship being literally transactional, she does make an effort to watch more of his show. They eventually spend private time together, but the cameras are still rolling. Nathan's story ends with the viewer questioning what is real and what is performance. After all, both Macy and Nathan are performers. Both are on camera, both have monetary reasons for meeting up repeatedly. What exists for a satisfying narrative wrapping? Does the authenticity of a show matter as long as the viewer can still believe it's real? Nathan perhaps helps someone else fulfill a goal, but what about himself? Doesn't the main character deserve a narrative through line? How much of this is Nathan Fielder the person, and how much of this is Nathan Fielder the persona? Once the cameras stop rolling, does everything go away? 5 years go by. The camera isn't rolling. HBO premieres the first episode of The Rehearsal, Fielder's new project. Nathan is seemingly the same character as the one in Nathan For You. The Rehearsal's first episode, Orange Juice No Pulp, has several incredible bits in it. The format feels very similar to Nathan For You, but instead of helping businesses, Nathan is now helping individuals. The first subject, Core, suffers from anxiety. He admits to Nathan that many years prior, he lied to his trivia team, telling him that he had a master's degree, when in actuality, he only has his bachelor's. He enlists Nathan to help him work up the courage to confront his friend Trisha. Nathan then does what he does best and puts forth an absurd amount of effort to make Cora's dream come true. He hires a doppelganger to play Trisha and builds a test environment where the conversation will take place, a one-to-one recreation of the bar. They run hundreds of simulations of the encounter, accounting for every misstep that could potentially lead to failure. When Nathan realizes that performing well in trivia is vital for the confession to be successful, he Slumdog Millionaire's Core a bunch of trivia questions so he can indirectly help Core cheat at trivia without Core's knowledge.
So it's days like these that I curse the Chinese for inventing gunpowder.
In the end, things don't go exactly as Core planned. Because he expects Trisha to feel betrayed and make a scene, his initial strategy is to mention the lie and not elaborate on any of his personal reasons for why he kept lying. But in the actual moment where he confesses, Trisha is far more accepting than expected. All of the feelings Core is so ashamed of come flooding out, and by the end of their hour-long conversation, it's clear that their relationship is stronger than ever before. Core no longer feels held back by the crushing guilt of his secret. Much like in Finding Frances, Nathan has a parallel plotline. He has deceived Core by Slumdog Millionairing information, and at the end of the episode we see Nathan has come clean. The reverse shot, cuts to Core's doppelganger instead. The stand-in is disappointed in Nathan, cursing at him and calling him a terrible person for tainting his perfect trivia record.
You're an awful, awful person.
The camera then cuts back to the actual Core, and we realize that Nathan chickened out instead of confessing the truth. Nathan again can't achieve what he makes possible for others. A world of pure imagination plays as Nathan retreats back to the replica bar that he had constructed. Reality doesn't give us many chances, and it's futile to chase perfection. Sometimes chance can lead to greater understanding and connection. Rather than fabricating a version of ourselves that we think people want to see, we ought to share who we really are, imperfections and all. The second episode, Scion, stars Angela, a 44-year-old woman who doesn't have kids, but hopes to one day find a man to raise children with. Nathan makes this possible by hiring dozens of child actors who will be swapped out every few hours in compliance with child labor laws. Angela is relocated to a rural location in Oregon where she can practice being a mother in an idealized home environment. She tries to find a man to co-parent with, and after a few dates, lands on Robin, who is initially game, but bails when the crying of the robotic infant becomes far too annoying to get a good night's sleep.
I need a good night's sleep.
What about me?
I'm leaving.
He's bailing.
What?
He's bailing.
Then the episode takes an unexpected turn as Nathan volunteers to participate in the experiment as Angela's platonic co-parent. Somewhat selfishly, this seems like something Nathan wants on a personal level. Over the course of these 2 episodes, we've learned a few things about Nathan. In the first episode, while talking to Core, Nathan mentions that he is also divorced as a way to build connection with Core. In the real world, Fielder is actually divorced. Perhaps this is a touchy subject for Nathan because in the show, he orchestrates an interruption that is set to occur after he shares this information, so as to discourage Core from asking any questions about Nathan's divorce. We gain additional insight in the second episode when Nathan agrees to babysit Angela's simulation child, Adam. Fielder genuinely seems like he is enjoying some aspect of caring for the infant. He fumbles with other things like changing a diaper, but overall, the new experience seems exciting to Nathan. In life, there are so many paths we could take. Nathan ponders why one would ever leave anything to chance when you can prepare to achieve the optimal outcome. Nathan hints at an inability to let anything go. He even keeps the bar that he had built in New York and has it transported across the country to a new warehouse in Oregon because it's familiar and he doesn't want to destroy it. Nathan notes that the bar is unable to fit into its new storage space, and the camera pans to reveal that the top of the simulation bar has been removed so it can fit into the new warehouse. Fielder's sentimentality and fear of the unknown are reinforced in his insistence on finding a way to force the old, familiar environment to fit where it doesn't belong. The bar is a metaphor. By the end of the episode, I got the feeling that the rehearsal is as much for Nathan as it is for the clients. So it appears again that Fielder will be breaking the fourth wall, just like in the end of Finding Frances. We expected another project like Nathan For You, but we may end up getting something we didn't expect. I believe we should look at the marketing materials to piece this together. The marketing for the show includes a poster where Nathan is at a dinner table with a completely synthetic family. They are these goofy looking mannequins with bizarre 1,000-yard stares and pained expressions. The trailers in the show are quickly edited to leave the viewer confused. I feel like this is deliberate misdirection. What looks like potentially several different clients could instead be a continuous plot line. The first episode leads us to believe that we're in for a similar structure to Nathan For You, where the conflict is resolved by the end of each episode. The second episode diverges from our expectations because things take a seemingly unplanned turn. As we can see, Nathan always has a flow chart for his interactions in the series. Perhaps since Robin dipped, he feels like he needs to keep the bit going himself, or maybe that was the plan all along because, let's be real, who would actually want to spend time with Angela?
We'd probably be online, but we'd also have access to go off the grid because infant skulls have not fully formed. So they absorb wireless radiation a lot more than we do into their brains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another theory is that the pandemic caused the show to go off the rails. If the pandemic hadn't happened, maybe the rest of this series would have been like the first episode. The first episode does look to be pre-pandemic, and the second episode, the production staff are seen wearing masks. Looking at the listed episode titles for the rehearsal, we see that the final episode is called Pretend Daddy. One might think that the cliffhanger at the end of Scion would lead to a two-parter, but I'm thinking this plotline will last the whole season. Nathan may even incorporate other schemes into the episodes while still acting as a parent. Perhaps the real Nathan Fielder has some desire to create a reality he never got the chance to experience in real life, or at least that's what the character Nathan Fielder could be doing. I really wonder where the plot will develop from here. What do you all think will happen in the next episode? Do you have any ideas where the plot could be heading? Do you have a favorite moment from Nathan For You that you'd like to share? Leave a comment below. This series has been a long time coming, and I personally can't wait to see where things go from here. Nathan For You was one of my favorite shows ever. I really hope The Rehearsal continues to be as jaw-droppingly funny and poignant as it already has proven to be. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.
Totaling my Scion TC at 100 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
After I totaled my Scion TC last April 2nd at 100 miles an hour. That was on my Scion TC that I crashed at 100 miles an hour.
Wash it.
Bruh?
Wash
What?
it.